Greetings guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. I hope that you are well and I hope that you are fighting because there's a lot to be fighting for. Now, I don't know if you remember, but a few months back we sat down and we looked at some comics by an artist on Twitter called Tatsuya Ishida, and they were something, to say the least. And I believe the name of that video was Twitter's favorite TERF comic, and that's kind of all you need to know if you didn't watch that last video. So yeah, basically this guy makes daily comics, and the overall theme of them presently is transphobia, which is always really super fun. But it's like transphobia masked as like caring about the children and about women, you know, thus TERF. And I wanted to go back and revisit it, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. So today we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into his work and look at some more of them. These comics have actually been going since 2000, so 22 years. One of these has been posted every single day. They were a really popular webcomic called Sinfest, where one was posted every day. They were like, everyone knew them. Everyone read them. They were nominated for a bunch of awards. They won Best Webcomic in 2015. Like, these were a big deal. And basically they use like dark humor and things to talk about important issues such as American politics and radical feminism. So yeah, these comics were made with themes of radical feminism and American politics in particular. And they started off as being very, you know, woke, but he wouldn't like if I used that word, so please forgive me. Where there was a big emphasis on the patriarchy and the problem with the patriarchy and the oppression of women. And I actually really like a lot of his earlier stuff. I even quite like some of the stuff he has done quite recently, and that pains me to say because I hate this man. But he does make some good comics. Like, the art style is great, and he does make some good points sometimes. Just unfortunately, it's been a little bit lost. By a little bit lost, I mean very lost. So I sat down and I scrolled all the way back to the start of his Twitter, which took me a really long time, because he posts every day and he's had Twitter since 2019. I didn't go off of Twitter and go to his really early stuff because I did end up saving 100 comics, so I just didn't really have the time. So we're just going through his Twitter career, and maybe next time I'll do another one of these and we'll go even deeper. We'll see. Let me know. I think that we can get the point across based on his growth and evolution over the past 3 years. Basically, the comics used to be really well-told stories. This was before he was on Twitter. This is based off of what I've read from other people. They used to be really well-developed stories. There were characters that you could follow and they were well-developed and always bringing a new idea to the table. But obviously, after over 20 years, you run out of ideas a little bit. You don't really know what to do anymore. And so a lot of his comics is just the same thing repeated over and over again. And he's not really bringing anything new to the table. But as I said, I actually quite like some of his older work. There is some comics that he makes that are quite good and they make good points. He, as I said, calls out the patriarchy and talks about real, actual issues. And he does it in like a funny and easily recepted way, such as in these comics. This is one of the recurring characters in his comics. His name is Dude Bro, and yeah, I think that kind of says enough about what he's trying to portray through him already, but these are a couple of the comics that he made about him. So he's watching TV and hearing misogyny, misogyny, misogyny. He is watching porn, misogyny, misogyny, misogyny. Out in public, walking down the street, singing about misogyny. He sees a woman protesting, saying end misogyny, and he goes, what misogyny? You know, the idea that all those men are like, women have equal rights already, what are you still fighting for? He's one of those guys. And so Tatsuya is obviously trying to say like, men are freaking stupid and don't realize that misogyny is still rampant, and they're just so blind to it, despite participating in it constantly. And I agree, that's an important message to be putting out there. I like this comic. There was this one that was titled Socializing Male, where they're watching violence on TV, blood, guts, and gore and sex, and then it comes to delicate emotions, and they're like, ah, gross, what the hell are those? And again, very good comic, very good points. Toxic masculinity is a big problem, absolutely. And he portrays Dude Bro in a really great way. He is a bit of a dick. He loves to objectify women. He's your average dude bro, cishet white man who is unaware of his privilege. And there are actually a few other comics that show this even better than these ones, but I already talked about those in my last video. So if you want to see those, go watch that video. But he makes some really good points. His comics with Dude Bro are very good, and I, on the whole, agree with them largely and think they're really cool. I also really like this one. This isn't a comic, but this again shows sort of his view of like feminism, I suppose, of just a bunch of like old white men sitting around the table with a like woman on the board as they have like animals and butchers like chopped into pieces with the names of like big corporations like Pornhub, Vogue, Victoria's Secret, Playboy, L'Oreal, Maybelline, etc. And it says Woman TM, wholly owned subsidiary of Man Incorporated. Brilliant. I love what this is saying. Absolutely true. We are constantly, you know, told what to do by society, and we are controlled, and our bodies are controlled by big corporations. We're constantly fed an idea of what a woman is meant to be, and we spend all of our money trying to maintain that. Brilliant. I really like this drawing. I really like this depiction. I love what it represents. Fantastic. He used to make some really good stuff with really good points and messages that was important for people to see. But then his focus switched a little, and it switched around COVID time. It started building a little bit on transphobia pre-COVID, but it has kind of gotten like worse and worse since COVID started, which is super interesting. And unfortunately, that is the main focus of today's video, because of course it is. That's what we're here for. So obviously he does daily comics, right? So he posts one a day, but he also does series. So he'll post like one part of a story every day, and some of them are like 50 long, which is so annoying. But like, I get it, it's fine. But one of the first big ones he did on gender was this one. This comic is one of his main protagonists. I don't know her name. She's going into a pharmacy, which is gender X, and obviously harm is illuminated because it's doing harm, gender, you know. Anyway, she goes in, there's a bunch of spilled pill bottles, and then there's a zombie pharmacist just throwing pills at her. She looks at the pills like girl pills for increased femininity, submissiveness, masochism, decorativeness. I don't want any of that. So the pharmacist says, so you want to be boy pills, and then points to a big diagram of gender where it says scientific gender guide. Girls are soft, boys are tough. It's science. See? And it's girls wearing like wedding dresses and maid outfits and going shopping with flowers. And then it's men with like baseball bats and guns and hammers and drills and stuff. And she says, that's not science, that's the village people. The pharmacist says, take your gender pills and you'll be happy, well-adjusted, gendered person. And if I don't, you'll be sent to gender camp for re-education. So this is part one, right? And then it moves into part two, which is the gender re-education camp, which is this boy who finds a Barbie doll on the side of the street and says, oh, how pretty. And then a big like ambulance type van comes and drags him away, and he gets thrown in the van for gender re-education camp, where he goes to the boys' facility and he gets given a blue pill, and everyone's doing like, you know, classic boy stuff. Like there's naked women on the pool balls and they throw darts at like a naked woman on a dartboard. So then he meets a person. What are you in for? I got caught with a Barbie doll. You? I space out a lot, like this. And then there's butterflies and flowers around them. And then there's a random gender check. Everyone acts masculine. Their response is to bark at them. So they say, perhaps you two would be more comfortable at girl camp. And then they get sent to girl camp, but the girl that was in the pharmacy before comes and breaks them out before they can go to re-education girl camp. That was a lot. I'm really sorry. You needed the full story. When I first saw this, I was like, yeah, no, I get that. I agree. Because I thought it was coming from the place of like, society says you have to be this to be a man, and you have to be this to be a woman, and that's a problem. And if you are a man who is not acting masculine, you get degraded and you get told you need to be a man and you need to man up and you need to do all this stuff and you can't do anything else. They would send you to a re-education camp. Some people do. Like conversion therapy and stuff exists, right? And so I thought it was coming from the same perspective as I am, but then I had the realization that the gender police are the woke zombies, as he likes to portray us, which baffled me because the whole thing we have is that, like, don't stereotype genders, be what you want. You can be a feminine man, you can be a masculine woman, you can be neither, you can be both. That's literally our whole thing. But the implication here is that, like, as soon as... But then I realized the implication of this is that if we see, like, a boy acting feminine, instantly people are like, that's a girl, he's trans, go give him girl pills. That's the implication of this, and I didn't even think of that because that's such an outlandish and ridiculous view to hold that I forgot that people for some reason think that's a thing. My guy, if you think that this is what the woke left, the woke zombies want, you're out of your mind. That's absolutely not at all what anyone's doing. This whole argument of, like, we're trying to encourage people to be trans when they're a little bit different is the most, like, insane idea. My guy, no. It's interesting because from what I have gathered from him, right, he is very radical feminist, right? That's what he is. He is a terf, a major terf. And he is one of those people who think that being trans is a threat to women's rights. And he has this weird thing, and this confuses me a lot, and I'll explain it to you in a second, but he seems to be transphobic largely because he believes in the deconstruction of gender, and he believes being trans reinforces gender. So it's like the idea of, like, he thinks that being trans is just, you're a girl who likes boy things, so you're told you're actually a boy. And he doesn't like that because that's implying that gender is attached to, like, material things and personality. He's one of those people who's like, no, you're just, like, a masculine woman, or you're just a feminine man. Like, you can be that. And I don't think he really fully grasps what being trans actually is and what it actually means. And he has absolutely no intention of learning or figuring that out or finding out, because I am sure people have tried to tell him and he just thinks that he's right. I do believe he believes in the deconstruction of gender. And you can see that from this comic where you have two woke zombies with their, like, gender axes who are approaching this guy who is one of their main protagonists, sitting at a booth that says gender is sexism. And the gender zombies, the woke zombies, are, like, threatening him, and then they go and, like, smash it because how dare you say gender is sexism? Gender is a very fundamental part of our society. How fucking dare you? Gender is everything. And so that to me implies that he is anti-gender. Anti-gender roles, anti the idea of gender and the construct of gender, and he wants to deconstruct that. He also says that in another one of his comics, gender is bad. We need to deconstruct gender. And I absolutely agree. I would love to deconstruct gender. Gender is a construct. It is made up entirely by us. But that's not entirely what being trans is. Being trans is a biological thing. You can see that through a lot of different research that has been done. Being trans is a biological thing. Okay? And I know that people have probably told you that and you've chosen to ignore it, but I just thought I would let you know that trans people can exist at the same time we deconstruct gender. Just pushing that out there. He actively says in a lot of his comics that he thinks non-binary is silly and made up and not a thing. And so that really confuses the idea that he wants to deconstruct gender, because he's very adamant on there is only man and there is only woman. If you are born a man, you are a man. If you are born a woman, you are born a woman. And that's so strange to me. He thinks gender is a construct, but also it's entirely dependent on your genitals and there's nothing you can change. I don't get it, man. I think you're confused. And even from here, he talks about deconstructing gender, and he talks about that a couple of times. The patriarchy created gender to oppress women. But then, you know, transphobia somehow took over his brain and made him forget that that's a belief that he held. when he made this comic of someone going through a drive-thru. They ordered a taco and were given a hot dog. And he said, I'm sorry, I ordered a taco. That is a taco. It's a hot dog. It's a trans taco. It has inner taco essence and taco mouthfeel. Tacos are social constructs. Hot dogs are also social constructs. Therefore, hot dogs are tacos. Mind blown. Which is so baffling to me because literally 3 seconds ago, you said that gender was sexist. And you also said that, what? If gender is sexist, then you want to get rid of it and deconstruct it. But also gender isn't a social construct? Which one is it, bro? Which one? I don't get it because like the whole thing of like the woke zombies is no one's forcing gender onto anyone, which isn't that what you want? Wasn't your whole thing of the gender re-education camp that you don't think we should be forcing gender roles on people? So then we're like, don't force gender on people, let them do what they want and identify as Isn't that what you're saying? I'm confused as to what's different. How is what I'm saying different to what you're saying? How are you anti-trans and almost like encouraging like hate crimes? If we agree, I don't get it. I'm really gonna need you to sit down and explain that to me because it doesn't make sense. How can gender be sexist if you love gender and you're saying I love gender if I'm saying I don't care about your gender? Bro, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. You need to sort that out because you're all over the place. His whole thing is that he thinks he's above everyone and he's above politics and he's better than that. So he is very, very centrist. He is very anti-right. He is very anti-left. He is a centrist, and he makes that very well known through like this depiction of the patriarchy on the right and the patriarchy on the left. If you can look at the patriarchy on the left depiction he has, you'll see a sign that says fembot. Now that is a major one of his like comic stories that he goes to a lot. So they're created by Devil Tech, the Fembot 3000. You own it, control it, make it do whatever you want. Experience total control. That's what they were created for. To please men and to obey men. And specifically be objects of desire. And I agree. That is a thing that happens. That is a real problem. And we really need to sort that out. But as I said, this was in the depiction of the patriarchy on the left. So he believes that this is what we, the woke left, are creating. The over-sexualization and objectification of women is a direct result and problem and fault of us on the left. And you must be thinking, what are we talking about? The objectification and sexualization of women has been happening for a really long time, and we are very morally opposed to that and call it out. This man thinks he has invented calling out catcallers. He thinks that catcalling, again, is something done by the left because we encourage sexualizing women. And the reason he believes that is because we are pro-sex work and pro-porn. So he's also a swerf as well. So he is very anti-porn, anti-prostitution. Like, that is a very heavy theme throughout his comics. And, oh my god, I don't think he quite gets it again. It's so funny because he's a man who's talking about how women aren't listened to, but he's talking over women. He doesn't think you can use sexuality to empower yourself, right? And I will admit, the porn conversation is very, very complex. It is not a black and white conversation. It is not something you can sit down and just talk about in 5 seconds and get everything out of the way. It is a conversation that you would have to write a thesis about this, right? This is like a very, very, very complicated patriarchal conversation of basically, he comes from the perspective of, you know, women become sex workers and go into porn because of patriarchal conditioning into them sexualizing themselves and feeling as though that is their job, that is what they're made to do, and they continue to uphold that patriarchy by sexualizing themselves and then consume that and then continue to sexualize women who are not in that industry. It continues to push more women into it, and the porn industry is unethical, it's abusive, there's a lot of assault, women are mistreated. And it's really, really bad. And I agree, I largely agree that the porn industry is absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely awful. A majority of it is horrific. However, you do have people who enjoy doing it. They like making porn. They're comfortable with it. They work within their boundaries. They aren't being abused. They're doing what they're comfortable with. There's a lot of people who do like homemade porn now. That's like a big thing. And that's totally cool. And people do find empowerment in it. Obviously, there is the conversation of like, is that still attached to the patriarchy? And the answer is yes. Everything is. That's the world that we live in. But it doesn't mean that it's inherently wrong, right? If they're fine and they're happy and they're healthy, that's okay. If what they're depicting is an overly graphic and violent and encouraging men to abuse women, I don't see the big problem with it. I think that's fine, it's healthy, whatever. I understand your problem, but you're wrong. And by constantly saying that all porn is bad no matter what, you're speaking over the women that you say you want to protect. So I'm gonna need you to just like sit down and think about that for a minute. But anyway, oh my god, this is so much. But this ties very well into the sort of final point of the left are hypersexual and encouraging hypersexuality among women, right? And because the left are hypersexual and they're also the people who are encouraging, supporting transgenderism and queer people in general, that sort of moves into the whole idea that queer people are groomers and we, the woke zombies, are grooming children. His most recent work plays very heavily into this disgusting, awful, and ridiculous conversation that the left are grooming kids. Queer people are grooming children. This is his most recent comic that he did, right? Meanwhile, in the Legion of Groom, there is Lex Luthor, Perverse Flash, the Twitler, and Molestro. And then it goes to this little girl who is reading a book with a rainbow on it. When her mom comes in and takes the book, she looks in the book and oh my god, there are gay people having sex and giving each other blowjobs in this book. So they march on over to the public school, barge on in, and they see a group of people, the people I introduced you to at the start, plus a couple of, I think, furries implied, who are like overly sexual. And the leader of this, Lex Luthor, says this committee grants the speaker 90 seconds. And the mother says, you're giving pornographic material to our children. The book depicts nudity, oral sex. One character offers another a blowjob. Language, please. This is a reputable institution. You are child abusers, grooming kids. And then a robot says, violation, hate speech, incitement to violence, terrorism. And then the dad says, you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. Ring a bell. And then, oh, they're not robots. They're people dressed as robot, like peacekeepers, stormtroopers, whatever. I don't know what I've been told. Parents terrorize school boards. Sound off, 1, 2. So, yeah. Basically, the idea that the schools are giving out pornographic material to children to read and it's teaching them graphically about gay sex, because that's a thing that's happening, especially at primary school, obviously. I don't know where this idea came from. I really don't know where this idea came from. How did it get into their heads that teachers are giving kids porn to take home? All they're doing is going into school and being told that they're allowed to be themselves. They can wear what they want, they can express themselves how they want, which I thought is what you wanted, by the way, and that they can have crushes on who they want to, because believe it or not, children have crushes on people. And if they're constantly being told they have to have a crush on someone of the opposite gender, and they have a crush on someone of the same gender, that's gonna be really difficult for them to come to terms with. And if they're constantly being told that, then when other kids find out that another person is different to that, they're gonna bully them, you know, like what's been happening for forever. So they're trying to change that so that that doesn't happen and kids can feel comfortable being themselves, you know? That's all that's happening. Graphic sex ed doesn't exist until maybe high school. And even then, there is very little to no focus on pleasure. And if you're talking about it for heterosexual couples, you can talk about it for queer couples as well, okay? All right? Not grooming, it's important. And it's important to learn about consent and sex at a young age too. Even primary school. Not in detail, but it is very important to know about consent and what is inappropriate touching when you're a child. He also has this really fun comic of a trans zombie going up to a child with a gender lollipop. Someone calls him a groomer, so he puts on his pride flag as a cloak of invisibility, and then suddenly the cops can't see him because queer people get away with breaking the law all the time. Cops don't discriminate against queer people. These two normal people capture him by luring him in with a sexy children sign. And so they take him into the courtroom, which is decorated with pride flags. And he just gets a finger wagging. Just a little tisk tisk. Don't groom children. Maybe he's playing good cop. Or maybe they're all just sick in the head and showing that police and things are all fairies, trans supporters. They're all zombies. Everyone's a zombie. They're the only ones who are normal. It's so insane to me that someone can think that trans people are not victims of police brutality and discrimination. Bro, maybe the reason that trans people are not arrested that regularly for molesting children is that it's not happening as much as you like to portray it is. Trans people aren't predators. They're not predators. Some trans people are predators. Yeah, obviously. Just like cis people are. Just like straight people are. Literally, there are predators, unfortunately, in every group. Every group has them. There aren't very many predators, and you know that because they're not being arrested. But, you don't want to admit that. You want to keep being transphobic, so you have to change the narrative to, no, it's just happening, but, no one cares. No, it's just not happening, bro. It's just not happening. That's what it is. It's just not happening. His comics from here are all pretty much the same exact thing. They have been the same thing for the past entire year. It's just been the same comic made time and time over. He has this one that I'll briefly just show you the frames of, where it's a little girl who had decided she wanted to play with trucks, so her mom's like, oh my god, we need to quickly change your gender. So they go into a clinic and they immediately are like, you're a boy, congratulations. Because obviously that's what happens. It's actually really easy to get gender affirming treatment, you know? They just hand out pills to everyone. You don't have to undergo any sort of psychiatric assessment. You don't have to talk to a therapist or a specialist. You don't have to go on a waiting list or wait for anything. And as a kid, you don't go on puberty blockers to stop puberty from happening. No, they straight up give you hormones to take immediately the first time you mention it. Obviously, that's a really well-known fact, right? I don't know who in their right mind even tries to convince themselves that that's a thing. And the fact that you somehow believe that this is a majority of people, most parents are still not cool with their kids being trans, which is really fucking sad. And a lot of doctors are still anti-trans, which is also fucked. And it's hard to get funding, it's hard to get anything. And this idea that it's so easy is so invalidating and insulting. I wish it was that easy. No parents are forcing their kids to go to gender therapy after they play with a truck one time. That's not a thing. Who are you trying to kid, man? It's so funny. Oh my god. The absolute misinformation that you're trying to spread because no one reads your comics anymore. He became so irrelevant. No one cares anymore. So this is just trying to pick up anyone he can. And these get traction, whether it's good or bad. People pay attention to them. That's how he found them, as a couple of them went viral, not that long ago. And so people are finding them, people are going through them, like myself, and it brings people in, right? It gets attention. So, it works. Before we leave, I'll do one final one just because I find it really amusing. And that is Venos. BIPOC, trans, neurodivergent, non-able-bodied. I have collected all of the oppression stones. None dare criticize me. All will cower before me, and they will know my name. Venos. I don't quite understand the purpose of this one, but I think it's very funny. And also, it goes against so much of what he used to stand for of fighting for oppressed people, especially the BICOP one. He made a bunch of comics about racism and police brutality even, and how white people don't care about that. He made a whole thing about that was really good and really important. So it's kind of fucking wild that he's included that in here. I don't know, man. He doesn't make sense to me. He's just doing shit for attention at this point, and I'm giving it to him because I got stuck in this rabbit hole and I needed to talk about it and get it off my chest because I don't understand how someone can go from holding these like strong feminist beliefs that he did into going and turning that into being like homophobic and transphobic. I don't understand how you can like look at inequality and see inequality as a problem and then go and treat a different group of people as unequals. Like, knowing oppression is bad and fighting against oppression and then going and fighting for the oppression of another group doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand how these people like separate groups in their head. I don't understand how terfs even exist. I don't know how or why you would take trans people out of your feminism. It literally makes no sense to me. And I just want to talk about it because it's baffling. I don't get it at all. So yeah, that is the life cycle of Sinfest comics. I hope that you learnt something and had a good old time looking at some comics with me. Let me know your thoughts, and if you want to see more of this, maybe I'll go back and look at some of their older comics. Maybe I'll come back in 6 months' time and see if they've done anything better. Probably not. I don't have high hopes. This has been my video. It was way longer than I anticipated it to be, but I hope you had a good time. A massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. And a huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons. Wolf, Toulouse, Bobby, Sparrow, Josh, Mandy, Robbie, Silly, Ikazel, Robin, and Resendo. I love and appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for joining. If you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/savvycat or click the link in the description. You get my videos a day early for as little as £1 a month, and then other tiers include a bunch of other fun perks too. Anything helps out and I appreciate it hugely. Follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah. When you close your eyes.